To the DFS Pawn Shop. My name is Eric. You can check me on those Twitter streets at Fantasy Nav, and always riding shotgun with me is my dude, Mr. Mike Holland. Mike, how's it going tonight?
It's going good, man. It's good to be back. Been a couple of weeks since we've done the show, so I'm looking forward to getting back into the green on some football. So you can find me at MC Holland 34 on Twitter, and then also a contributor on at Bacon and Egg Show, where we talk all things Texas sports, really focusing on basketball right now because the football team is not good.
Literally talking about anything except for UT football at the moment is what you will find on the Bacon and Eggs show, and it's a ton of fun over there. If you are a Longhorns fan, Misery loves company. The good group of guys over there chopping it up on Bacon and Eggs, and like you mentioned, we're actually coming in off of a couple of weeks layover, so we'll kind of take a second here and reset for the top. Anyone who has listened in before, you know what we do here at the Pawn Shop. For those of you who are new, thanks for giving us a shot. Basically, how it works here is we will run down the showcase games. These are the high ticket items, dare I say, the good shit at the Pawn Shop. This is where we're going to spend the most of our money and the most of our time as we go through building for week number 11. As always, we'll spin through the sales rack and we will take a look at the bargain bin, and we will wrap up with all of the listeners' questions that were submitted live on the show and to us through Twitter before we got on. And Mike, we're right back at it here in week 11. We're now back into the end of the Buy-Mageddon weeks where we've got a full 12 gamer here on deck. So with this full slate of games, anything kind of stand out in particular in terms of how maybe a larger slate might affect your strategy or just kind of general thoughts heading in?
Yeah, I mean, just an overall view of this slate, I'm, just kind of looking at a lot of these totals and there's not a ton to get excited about this. A couple of these games that we'll talk about up at the, and then try to leverage those plays with some of the some of those games that if they go over, they can help ship a victory here. One thing that I am noticing though is obviously when you get into week 11 and on, these weeks it seems like the injury reports mean everything, and it's really determining whether or not to throw some darts at some of these receivers. Just what are these cheap quarterbacks that are out here right now, I should say. So, just a lot more to deal with when you get into the later weeks of the season. So, just really trying to navigate this and, obviously pick our spots here and there and hopefully put a complete up together and take another tournament down.
Yeah, it's always fun, right? I feel like heading into any full slate of game weekend, I've got the best of intentions in terms of how I want to approach it, how I want to build around a couple of core guys and make a few pivots. And then Tinker Time comes around and I end up with somewhere between 20 and 50 lineups. And it makes for a fun sweat on Sunday, if nothing else. But with that, we'll dive right in. I talked a little bit about the showcase here at the top. And again, this is where we're going to focus the majority of our time and attention. And also it's where we're likely going to spend the most of our money, right? In terms of these showcase games, these high ticket items. This is where a lot of stacks are going to be born and a lot of the kind of foundational layer of our lineups will be built. So with that, we'll take it right from the top. And it has become a tradition at the Pawn Shop that we start off our showcase games with the defending champion or AFC champion, Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that has more to do with how woeful their defense has been this season because they are always carrying big totals. And this week does not disappoint. We are looking at the largest total on the slate, 56.5 points for the 425 game tomorrow, America's game of the week. Kansas City is a 2.5-point favorite, and this was after they opened at -7.5, so a lot of movement in the direction of the Cowboys, but it leaves Kansas City with a 29.5 implied total, and Dallas at an even 27. So, like I mentioned, this is the game of the week yet again with the Cowboys, and for me, I was hoping that we were going to see a couple of teams coming in with a ton of momentum coming off of huge wins, and we get hit by the whammy. And Amari Cooper is lost for the Cowboys to the coronavirus. So, taking a look at it, it would seem logical that this game is going to draw a lot of the ownership on this Week 11 slate. So are you going to have a good amount of exposure to it, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to have a pretty good amount of ownership in this game. Two high-powered offenses, big total. It's going to be really tough to fade this game. Although some of the games this year, the Chiefs have been involved in these type of totals, they, have gone under the week that I was able to take a tournament down. That's actually so. It's possible. I just don't think in this matchup that it's really smart to play one player. I think you got to have multiple guys in this type of game environment. The biggest question is, what are we going to do with Michael Gallup now that Cooper's out? I mean, it's going to be pretty popular. Coming in with a ridiculous price tag, $4,200 this week, getting back into the groove of things. I think I'm probably going to be somewhere in the 30% for Dak a lot. But I always want to pair him with Dak with CeeDee Lamb. And I don't mind the quarterback, running back, receiver stack that I always talk about, putting an Elliott in there in this type of setting, and just hopefully all the points are concentrated on Elliott, Prescott, and Lamb. So definitely a strategy I'm going to put in place to be different. I always try to be different whenever these game totals are this high, because you're going to have to compete against a lot of different lineups. And on the other, it's almost a cash game lock, I would think. I know the Cowboys have been playing better on defense, but Mahomes been playing better recently, and I mean he's averaging 24 fantasy points a game, so it's not like he hasn't been getting it done. It just seems like he's had somewhat of an off year for his standards. So yeah, I'm looking to get a lot of Mahomes. And I do like that Kelsey's price. You're not paying a ridiculous price tag. 7,100 is still pretty expensive, but I can swallow that pill. And then, with the KC running game, it's kind of a their situation. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's really where I want to spend a little bit more time, right? This game is going to be uber chalk, and for good reason, right? So I do think that you have to dip your toe in the water and find a way to get these players into your lineup. But you asked what I think is really the $1 million question here, and that is, what do we do with the return of CEH into this Kansas City backfield, right? Darrell Williams, specifically in the last time out against the Raiders, looked like he certainly deserves a role in this offense going forward. We don't really have good line of sight or reporting in terms of if CEH is going to be on any sort of pitch count here in his first week back off of the IR. But I think that uncertainty within the Kansas City offense that clearly wants to establish both the ground game and the short passing game to running backs, I think the return of CEH kind of muddies the water enough to where we can potentially get leverage off of it. So I was actually hoping for your thoughts on whether or not CEH is worthwhile, if you think his appearance there maybe just drags Darrell Williams' ownership down enough to where he becomes maybe the most valuable piece out of this Kansas City offense.
Yeah, I mean, before kind of this news with CEH potentially coming back, a lot of people were high on Williams, but I think as we get closer to lock, it's just going to drag Williams' ownership down, even if Edward Hilaire's on a pitch count. So, they're at these price points where it's like, man, is it really going to kill me if one of them gets 60 yards and if they both get 60 yards and a touchdown? No. So I think I'm really just going to focus on my Mahomes stacks on these. I maybe have a share of Williams here or there. I don't think I'm going to go to CEH this week until I kind of see what's going on. And then obviously the most expensive guy in this matchup is Tyreek Hill. So, what are we doing with him? Yeah, I feel like if you were playing a one-off situation with him, so I don't know. That's just my thoughts. What are you thinking?
Yeah, the thing that's most tricky about this is, like, we have to look at this game as one where you're going to have pieces, right? One off is probably not quite enough, right? This is the highest scoring total by a good 6 points. So we want to get our action into this. Michael Gallup is going to be chalk city. You mentioned probably having about 30% exposure to him, which actually is coming in underweight, right? He's projected around 38 or 40% ownership. So Tyreek Hill is certainly the most significant upside available to you out of this game, and I think there's a really strong case to be made for rostering him. The question really becomes is like, where's the run back that is going to get you different, right? Are you looking at some Schultz action? Are you looking at maybe Ced Wilson? How can we both save a little bit of money, but also get onto some of those under-owned pieces? And maybe that's the question, right? Of all the kind of tertiary guys, either on the Dallas side that I just mentioned, or the Byron Pringles and Mecole Hardmans of the world, any of those lowest owned guys out of this slate that you think are worth a dart or two?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of darts you want to throw here, but I think they're mostly on the Dallas. Someone that could really differentiate your lineup here and save you some salary, give you some exposure to this. We've seen that he's had good games in the past. It's not a popular play, obviously, but that gives you access to this game. Dalton Schultz is another one. The tight end, he's averaging 11 fantasy points. The Chiefs aren't great at covering the tight end, so he's someone interesting because when you start building lineups on this slate, people are typically just going to click Michael Gallup's name to start, as you talked about the 40% to not get to that percentage yourself when you're making your lineups. So I think some of these other guys are a little interesting. On the Chiefs side, it's just a little bit tougher because so much of the usage, it just really just concentrates around Hill and Kelsey. So I don't mind, Mecole Hardman, but I think I'm really just going to concentrate on the Dallas side if I'm looking for salary savings. What about you?
I think that makes a lot of sense, and really there's not that cliff, right? Like, there are the two guys in Kansas City that are going to be the focal point of the offense, and then everyone else, you really just throwing darts, right? So if you're gonna mass multi-enter and you want to rotate in those those tertiary pieces for Kansas City, I think that's a fair enough strategy. But the lineups where it doesn't hit are going to be near the bottom of the payout structure, right? Or even the standing structure, I should say. So looking at the Dallas side, they at least get those secondary pieces in the mix. So that's probably where I would look to get a little bit different while still having a good amount of exposure to this game.
Same here. Anything else we missed on this game?
No, I think that touches them all with the top game in the showcase. Before we move on, we've got our dude Garrison jumping in. He mentioned yesterday on the Armchair Show that he's usually sitting with us on Saturday nights doing his research while we are hustling away here at the pawn shop. So Garrison, thanks for spending some time with us yet again. Love what those guys are doing on Fridays. Happy to follow up and keep the good work on the DFS side going here for Going for Two. So appreciate you spending some time with us this Saturday night. And with that, we will move on to our second showcase game, where we have the Cincinnati Bengals squaring off against the Las Vegas Raiders. We say in the afternoon block, it's a 4:05 game with a 50.5 total. This one has gone up a bit. It opened at an even 50. We've actually seen a pretty good swing in terms of the spread itself. The Raiders opened as 4.5-point home favorites, and that has now swung all the way over to the Bengals, now as a 1-point favorite. So that leaves them with a 25.75 implied total, with the Raiders carrying 24.75. So both of these teams, granted for the Bengals was 2 weeks ago, are coming off of games where they allowed their opponents to score 41 points as they proceeded to get boat raced. So certainly a lot of scoring potential in this one. It is the second highest scoring game on the board. So any pieces that are jumping off the page for you? Maybe are you looking at using this as a way to maybe leverage off of the chalk in the Kansas City game.
Yeah. This one's a little tough for me. I know it's going to be somewhat popular with the, obviously the pricing in this game. Joe Burrow coming in at 60, they definitely have some upside. They're definitely going to draw some ownership. For me, I'm not completely in love with this game. I actually think this game kind of goes under. I do like T. Higgins as long as he's going to stay at this price point. Like 5,400. It's just at some point he's going to, absolutely go bonkers. I mean, he's just been kind of, steady 13 fantasy points, 13.8, 13.7, 13.2. So he's someone that I have a lot of interest in. Darren Waller's price has come down 6,100. Just hasn't been quite the beast that we were expecting to be throughout the year. So definitely someone I have interest in. You always have to have interest in Jamar Chase. I mean, 7,200. It's just tough if you're going to be playing a lot of the pieces off the Dallas and Kansas City game, especially a Kelsey or a Hill. It's going to be really tough. And playing them with one of the quarterbacks in that game, it's going to be really tough to get up in. Then you're going to have to pick a low-end defense in order to kind of, stay, within your salary. So what about you? How are you attacking this one?
Yeah, I like a couple of pieces here as a way for salary relief for the amount that we're going to spend up in the Kansas City game, right? The sort of same price principle. We look at Gallup sitting there at his $4,200 price tag. So there are some guys specifically in this game, right? You look at Boyd, you look at Edwards that are going to be sitting right around that same price tag. And because Gallup is going to be right there, I mean, they're going to be into the low single digits of ownership. So interesting way to get kind of tapped into this game and pivot off of and leverage off of the Gallup chalk. The thing that I like most about this game is that the stacking options are pretty straightforward, right? Like if you wanted to play a single entry GPP or kind of like a 3 or a 5 max, stacking up this game, where those targets are going to be distributed to, that ultimately Waller's performance in every week, except for the first one, is going to drive his ownership down, especially in a slate where Kelsey is available. That a lot of the target and scoring opportunity for Cincinnati is going to be directed towards Jamar Chase. So it might be an interesting way to, tap into a very high scoring game, but sort of spin off of that Kansas City chalk that everyone's going to be chasing.
Yeah, I mean, I want to kind of game stack some of these other games and just really maybe play a one-off here and there on this particular game. I mean, I have a slight interest in Josh Jacobs. I mean, 6K. We haven't really seen the Josh Jacobs game, where he gets this couple of scores and hits that 100-yard mark. So he's a little interesting. And obviously I don't see a lot of people clicking his name as they're building lineups. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to have some exposure to it. I'm not going overboard at all. I'm going to attack some of these other games that we're about to talk about a little bit heavier as far as a stacking purpose, but I do like some one-off pieces in this game. So are you doing anything with Joe Mixon?
Probably not. Just sort of where he falls into the pricing. There are other guys that I would rather have all around him, right? I'd rather be saddling up with Elliott or Chubb. I'd rather save a few dollars and go down to DeAndre Swift. I think a lot of people are going to be thinking about Mixon in a similar light. So if you're looking for a differentiated piece, he's certainly one of them. And Las Vegas is very much so a favorable matchup for running backs, right? We saw what Darrell Williams did to them last week out. I think they're the 25th or 26th ranked defense in terms of DK points allowed to the position. So definitely a solid spot, but you should go in pinching your nose, knowing that you're pivoting and trying to get leverage, and so that range of outcomes is going to be wide inherently.
Yeah, no, I agree. So why don't we move on? Talk about something that'll get me a little more excited on this Saturday night.
Yeah, he's teeing it up for what I think is going to be a really interesting game. We are now sliding into the 1:00 window. We've got a 1:00 game between the Indianapolis Colts and the Buffalo Bills. This one has actually gone down a couple of points. We're sitting at 49.5 after opening at 51.5. Buffalo is laying 7 points. That has held steady. So that leaves them with a 28 1/4 implied total, and Indy sitting all the way down at 21 1/4. So based on your lead up, based on some of the things that I've been saying coming in, it sounds like we are maybe looking at this game in a similar way. So Mike, tell the people what they want to hear about this 1:00 matchup.
They want to hear that Josh Allen and either Cole Beasley or Emmanuel Sanders stack is going to take down the Millie this week.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, that's where I'm at, man. Yeah, I do like Allen in this spot a lot. 8-1 is a pretty hefty price tag. I don't think a lot of people are going to go there. That's on my radar here. And I just think the amount of volume that Cole Beasley gets is crazy. If he scores a touchdown, like it's at this price point, it's just so good. And then, we've seen the Emmanuel Sanders, breakout game. I think there might be another one in there, so I don't mind that at all at 5,300. And then I do like this for a game stack. It's a little tough to game stack it on the other side with Taylor because he's so expensive now. Just been crushing left and right here, but it's pretty expensive, especially if we're trying to play pieces off the Kansas City Dallas game. Someone I'm interested in on this side is going to be a Michael Pittman. Carrying that 6,100 price tag doesn't scare me as much as it probably should. We've seen Indianapolis hang tough, and so he's somebody that I definitely want to get some exposure to. He's probably more of a one-off, situation for most of my lineups, but in lineups where I don't mind going to him. And then, I don't know what the deal with T.Y. Hilton is. Obviously he beat up the Texans for a few catches and then hasn't really done much. So his price tag is 4,300. It's like, man, we live in a world now where T.Y. Hilton's 4,300. So no wonder my hair is getting gray. So I don't know. He's a little interesting as like as a almost a punt play at 4,300. Decided. And then, Taylor's just too expensive, I feel like. But he's definitely a way to be different this week. So, I could see myself clicking it a few times. So what are you doing in this game?
I really like the Taylor play, and that is scary to me because we've seen Carson Wentz do dumb shit all season long. Shovel passing directly to the opposing team right on the goal line, throwing left-handed out of his own end zone, right? And this has all led to the Colts sitting here as, touchdown underdogs. So the idea of firing up the running back for a team that is a big underdog like this is not the most comforting thing. But also, it's fun to buy into the hype and to watch the in-season Hard Knocks and see the coaching staff talking about wanting to get him the ball more than he's already been seeing it. So I really like the Taylor piece, but it's worrisome that there are plenty of outcomes where this Colts team is down by 2 scores very early on, and it becomes a bit more of the Nyheim Hines show. Where I wanted to get your point of view is it sounds like you're looking at the secondary receiving pieces for your stack with Josh Allen. Is that really just a pricing consideration? You don't want to go out and drop 16 grand on your stack, or do you think that Diggs is going to be too chalky as everyone chases last week's performance?
went off last week. I mean, he could do it again this week. I mean, he's that good of a receiver. So yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. 16K together, and then the main guy you want to play on the other side is over 8K. So it's like, you're gonna be firing some bullets at some darts down here at the bottom on three other positions. It feels like. So yeah, it's more of a way to, obviously be able to spend up in other places. Usually you could even get, a Kelsey, without Diggs. So, and I just look at it and just say, hey, how can you be different here? I don't see a lot of people going to that Allen and Sanders or Allen and Beasley stack. So it's different. And I think the slate in particular, I just feel like people are just so drawn into the Kansas City Dallas game that, in none of these other games are really, I mean, like I'm not that thrilled to try to build a stack in that, that game environment. So, just trying to find, a game that you can really just kind of be different here and create some leverage on the other, on the Dallas game is kind of what I'm looking at here. And it's one of my favorite spots to kind of try to attack because, man, these guys, they can put up points in a hurry. So, especially on this Buffalo side.
Yeah, staying on that thread, I want to get your thoughts on the now twice removed from a stint on the IR tight end for Buffalo, Mr. Dawson Knox. Right, he's sitting down at 4K in the tight end spot. He's coming off of a pretty down performance despite a pretty good day overall for the Bills last time out. So I do think he's going to get overlooked. And just generally speaking, for me, he's kind of the last stop on like the tight end punt play train, right? Like, I don't want to go chase Conklin catching 2 touchdowns on 3 receptions again. And everyone below that is really just a dart throw. So what are your thoughts on maybe getting a couple of shares of Knox in there?
Yeah, I don't mind Knox as a punt play at tight end. Just doesn't get a lot of volume, but all he needs a touchdown at that price point, a couple of catches, and you can get there. So I don't mind it. That's more of a one-off play for me. I don't know if I'm going to really be stacking a Diggs with, if I'm stacking with Diggs, then I might do it because that's some salary relief there. And you go get Gallup. Maybe it allows Tinker with that, come lineup time. But for the most part, it may just make a few of my lineups. Nothing too crazy.
That makes sense. So with that, you want to step back from the showcase and go cruise through the sales rack?
Oh yeah, let's cruise.
Let's do it. So that sales rack, these are not the highest ticket items in the pawn shop. These certainly aren't going to be the biggest bang for your buck, but they certainly carry plenty of worth, right? So always a good spin through the sale rack, and you can find a few things that you're going to be pretty happy with taking home. And our first sales rack game is the aforementioned Minnesota Vikings facing off against the Green Bay Packers. We stay in the 1 o'clock window. We're sitting at 47.5. This has come down from opening at 48. Green Bay is currently a 1-point favorite. So that leaves them with a 24.25 implied total, and Minnesota at 23.25 themselves. So talked a little bit about Conklin ruining a lot of Justin Jefferson owners' Sundays last week, myself included. But sort of settling into that Kyle Rudolph role of only getting targets in the end zone and only making touchdown catches. Green Bay managed to get a win in Aaron Rodgers' return against Seattle last week, but certainly didn't look to be quite themselves. And now they bring us mega chalk at the running back position with Aaron Jones sidelines and A.J. Dillon getting his opportunity to start. So quick overview of that game. Any pieces in particular that you're looking to maybe get overweight to the field on or that you're prioritizing in your build on the whole?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, 7K, like it's like really hard to not want to just smash that in most of your lineups and just go from there. I mean, that's pretty cheap. So especially with Aaron Jones being out, a lot of people are going to be there. But man, you can never go wrong with that Rodgers-Adams stack, right? Just seems like I've won a couple of tournaments on that stack, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but they just seem to get it done a lot. So I think this is a game too that unlike the Oakland Cincinnati game that I want to build some stacks on. So you kind of mentioned Justin Jefferson 8,100. Oh, man, like it seems like the pricing is pretty tough this week to get up some of these to get there. So for me, if I'm playing. If I want to play Kelsey, I want to play Hill, I want to play CeeDee Lamb, I want to get exposure to those environments. It's just really hard to get up to, the Jeffersons and the Adams without it just being a stack and kind of moving away from that Dallas game. So, some of the pieces that you got to kind of look toward are down here at the bottom. We got Lazard's doubtful. I know people. MVS and Cobb. I mean, 4,400 and 4,000 or 3,700 for MVS. It's like, man, it'd be nice if they could just hit a 60-yard bomb to MVS and just, I can kind of move on to my other pieces in my stat, in my game. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to try and make it work. But a lot of what I'm doing this week is I'm going to play some of the expensive guys from the Dallas KC game there. But, if I'm going to play a different quarterback and stack him like an Allen, I'm going to stack him with the Beasley. I'm going to stack Aaron Rodgers with one of these scrubbier plays. And that's not to say that I won't get to the Allen Diggs or the Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. I will have some of that, but most of my stacks, are going to be geared towards trying to find that second and third piece that can maybe go off with the Rodgers type play. So, that's kind of if it kind of changes as we get closer to lock when I start clicking these buttons and the salaries are just kind of out of control and you're like, man, you gotta start saving somewhere. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, 7K is just flatly too cheap for Aaron Rodgers and what he can do on the football field. And yes, pairing him up with Devontae Adams and spending about 15 grand is a hefty price tag. But in general, almost all of the stacks that we're looking at are going to be pretty expensive, right? So I don't think we necessarily need to be sort of risk averse or price sensitive as we go through this, right? There's enough value on the slate. What I like most about the Aaron Rodgers play specifically, which is really where I want to get to from this game, is we've said it week in and week out. Anytime that there is a chalky running back, their quarterback will be underowned, right? All of the action for this Green Bay game is going to be centered around A.J. Dillon. And so quarterbacks don't draw a lot of ownership as it is, but a 2 or 3% owned Aaron Rodgers just has like Millie Maker winner written all over it, right? And I try my best not to buy into the narrative stuff, but specifically with Aaron Rodgers, like he has every reason in the world to shift the storyline back to his play on the field after taking some horse medicine over the course of the last few weeks and catching a lot of grief for lying to the media and to his team about his status. So I think he's got a real incentive to really go out there and make a splash. I don't think he's too happy with the performance that he put up last week. So a lot of things to like about what Aaron Rodgers can do in this game. And honestly, I think maybe looking at the run back pieces is where you kind of get a bit more different if you are stacking this game, right? Devontae Adams is going to be incredibly chalky, at least paired up with Aaron Rodgers, I should say. That's going to be a very popular build. And you look at Justin Jefferson, the price might scare people away, but I do think that Dal Cook, Adam Thielen could be kind of a unique texture to your build overall if you decide to stack this one. So I'll probably have a couple of darts that look something like that as we get a little bit closer to lock.
And no one's playing Dal Cook this week, right?
No one.
No one. Like, Yeah, man, I don't know, man. Like,
Let's see what we got
maybe
up
there's a
over
good
here.
reason because both running backs in the same game, like it's like one of the scariest things you can do in NFL DFS. Like you can do it in college, but man, like, and when you're talking making NFL lineups, it's like, oh gosh, these two guys are on the they're going to be on the field at the same time. It's tough. So
Yeah,
interesting leverage.
I mean the Dow Cook thing for me. I mean, depending on whose projections you trust, it looks like he's going to be somewhere around the range of 1/5 the ownership of AJ Dillon. So, interesting way to sort of tap into and spin off of who's currently slated to be the chalkiest running back on the board.
Yeah. I mean, man, looking at it now, man, the Rodgers Adams Cook stack looks super
See?
low owned, but super
See?
heavy. And then of course you just have to click
Right.
Gallup.
I mean, at that point, you're clicking Gallup. You're probably clicking Bateman and Mooney. You're gonna have some warts in your lineup, but it's gonna feel good firing up
Yeah.
that three piece from the Green Bay Minnesota game.
Right. I don't mind it at all. But yeah, you ready to move on from this one?
Yeah, we will slide on back to the afternoon block. We've got a 4:25 game between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. This one is sitting at 47.5. It's down from opening at 50.5. Arizona is currently at 1.5-point favorites. They actually opened as a 3-point dog. A lot of this has to do with the availability of Kyler Murray. But as we sit today, or right now, I should say, Arizona at 24.5 implied total and Seattle at 23. So like I mentioned, Kyler Murray's availability is really the story here. It seems like he's certainly more likely to play this week than he was in any of the weeks past. If you think about the last 2 weeks where he was designated as a game time decision, like he is for this week, usually by this time on Saturday night, we were getting some whispers from Schefter that they are, very pessimistic about his likelihood to play. And we're not seeing that this week. So leading indicators are, I think we might actually have a good shot at getting some Kyler Murray in this matchup against Seattle. And I think that totally changes the picture of this game, maybe even vaults it back up into that 50-point range. So a lot of news to keep up with in terms of his availability here. Mike, do you think that we end up with Kyler Murray? And depending on your answer, how does that change your approach to this game in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little tough. So Kyler's always someone that, could break a slate, but he's, it just doesn't seem like he's going to, even if he plays, it doesn't seem like he's going to be 100%. So, yeah, I mean, if we get word that he's, 100%, I swear this, it's not really something I'm looking to get into. The other side of it, I mean, Russell Wilson, 6,500. I mean, he didn't look good last week. I still think he's working out the hand injury, but man, if he's close to 100%, 6,500, I know Arizona's, been balling this year, but he's an 8K quarterback and you're getting him for 6,500. So if he, gets another week under his belt here, he could be someone who's kind of sneaky here in Cardinals. So he's definitely someone that I'm looking to potentially either one off or, man, I don't know. The Wilson Lockett stack is certainly kind of interesting just because of what they've done to this team in the past. So, my interest is going to be more on the Seattle side than anything. DK Metcalf's also only 6,800. So you get some cheap pieces on the Seattle side. So I don't mind it at all. I'm not going to go crazy or anything. I'm going to have some shares here. James Conner, 6,100 is a little tough, but hey, I mean, Seattle's run defense is pretty bad. So, I could see him going for a couple of scores. So, what are you kind of doing in this game environment?
Yeah, so the things for me that really jump off the page are exactly what you said about the Seahawks wide receiver core. Like they've had one game with Russell Wilson back where he looked like trash, right? He certainly looked like he was shaking the rust off, and now they're back down to their Geno Smith price tags. So I like a lot about both of those players as those big kind of over the top options in your build. I think for me, the questions that really boil down that this game in particular boil down to is with DeAndre Hopkins out, is it worthwhile throwing a dart on any of the other Arizona pieces, right? We know they run a ton of four wide, but with Hopkins out, they tend to go to a bit more of a restrictive split.
Yeah, no, I think for me, it's really just going to be Connor. I mean, I'm not, too much of a fan of just, going to some of these secondary pieces for Arizona. So for me, it's just kind of going to be Connor. And, I'm just going to kind of really focus my attention on the Seattle side and just see what we can kind of do with that. And, just kind of pick a piece here and there. If it fits, it fits, but not going too crazy here. But I think it might make my stack. So I don't know, just a way to be different.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Connor is the main piece, and he bailed you out last week with a touchdown. So I don't think that people are going to be entirely off of him, but I do think that his ownership is going to continue to dwindle as people kind of come back to earth from that 40-point outing a few weeks ago. So like getting some Connor, definitely like the Seattle wide receiver pieces, and with that. We will. Oh, we got some breaking news on a game that we can touch on a little bit later. With that, we'll move on to our next stop here in the sales rack, and that is a 1:00 game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one opened at 45.5. It is now settled in at an even 45. San Francisco, for some godforsaken reason, opened as only 4-point favorites. The line has adjusted in their favor. They're now sitting at -6.5. That is still not nearly large enough, but we will talk about that here in a minute. That leaves them with an implied total at 25.75, with the Jags all the way down at 19.25. So, I mean, I don't really understand why Jacksonville is getting this much respect. Maybe it is the vaunted West Coast team traveling east for the 1:00 kickoff. But apart from that, this seems like one that San Francisco should be able to run away with pretty comfortably. So usually in those blowouts, that has me leaning towards the ground game on the winning side and the air game on the losing. Is that how you're kind of looking at this matchup as well?
Yeah, I don't know why this. I think this San Francisco is going to kind of handle business here. So, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. I mean, the ground game is going to be centered around our guy here. So if he can make it to the end of the game, I feel like he's going to be a great play here. Trevor Lawrence on the other side, 5,200. Definitely someone that piques my interest, especially if we feel like San Francisco is going to get out ahead and kind of handle business. He's going to have to be getting up into these probably 40 passing attempts to on a comeback, and I could see if he gets a couple of cheap ones at 5,200. He could really pay off here, and he's someone to play him. So, getting him stacked with Marvin Jones is something that I'm looking at here. I guess bearing the lead here, I feel like Deebo Samuel's in a smash spot here. I just feel like there's not much Jacksonville is going to be able to do to kind of stop this guy. So he's fallen in line with some of these other receivers. I mean, 7,800. It's like, man, where are we going to find? I mean, I know we can find some of the coin with Gallup and some of these Dawson. It's just really tough to get there without sacrificing a piece from that Dallas game, one of the main guys. So we're gonna have to find some of these guys who are going to do it because not everybody in the Dallas Kansas City game is going to go off. I hope. Otherwise, it's going to be a massive score to take it down this week. So he's definitely someone that I'm looking to get into in more of a one-off spot. I'm not really looking to stack him with Garoppolo. It's an interesting stack, but I just don't, San Francisco, they like to run. I'm not playing Wilson on some one-offs. It's going to be Deebo Samuel for me.
Yeah, for me, I like the Wilson play a lot. I mean, look, you have to weigh the risk of whether or not he can finish a game, but he made it back and played an entire complement of, granted, the third down role primarily in his first game back last time out against the Rams, and now he is in a position to where he should see almost the entirety of the workload for this Kyle Shanahan offense, right? There very well might be a Trey Sermon sighting this week, but ultimately that guy is in the doghouse, and I think that you look at players like AJ Dillon, players like Mark Ingram that are going to draw a ton of ownership, and I don't think we're going to see Wilson anywhere near that type of kind of chalk or exposure. So definitely like getting different with him. The Deebo piece is tricky for me, right? Like there's enough value on the slate to where you can really fit in most of the guys you want. But in this game where, I mean, I think they should be closer to a double-digit favorite, I should say. I mean, it feels gross to click the button on an 8K player that's basically going to have to give you all of his productivity in the first half of the game. He can certainly do it. Don't get me wrong. But you look at guys around him, CeeDee Lamb, Diggs. If you're running the Buffalo stack, that's probably where I would feel more comfortable with these kind of top tier wide receivers. The guy that I want to talk to you about is my friend Dan Arnold.
Gosh.
Jacksonville went out and got their man, and this dude has been balling. He's out here scoring double-digit points in 4 of his last 5. He looks to be the primary target for rookie Trevor Lawrence, certainly his favorite target in the red zone. So sitting at 4,100 in a game where they're going to have to throw, and in a matchup that's at least decent, right? San Francisco's about middle of the road against the tight end. Worth a shot, or your money better spent elsewhere?
No, definitely worth a shot because we've been talking about all these expensive receivers that we're trying to get to. Tight end's probably that position you're going to have to find the guy that's going to smash down here in the 4K region. So, I mean, he's gotten 8 targets last game. 7, 10, 5, 8. So he's going to get if he puts it in the end zone, I mean, yeah, there you go. That's really all you need out of him. So definitely an interesting play. And running a Wilson Deebo with Lawrence, Arnold, and Jones is definitely a unique way. If somehow this game stays close, which, I mean, I just don't see it, man. I just feel like Jacksonville's just going to San Francisco's just kind of run away with this thing. And I kind of like San Francisco's defense, honestly. So very contrarian and something that I would fire up in a large field for sure. But for the most part, I don't know. It's just something about Deebo that I feel like he's just going to get his 25, and that's good enough for me this week. Kittle's the kind of interesting no man's land play like Waller is. I mean, I know the trend this week and is going to be to spin down at tight end because you want to play a lot of these receivers. And man, 6,300, it's just kind of tough to get there. For me, do you have any interest in Kittle?
I mean, I think he's definitely a contrarian play, right? Like, I don't think people are going to go out of their way to spend up at tight end in this game in particular. But now that we've talked about, some of these kind of, bottom rung options, the tight end position, it reminds me that this is probably the first time maybe all year since week 1, maybe, where all 3 of the primo tight ends are here on the main slate. So do you think that, kind of zooming out a little bit, that this maybe sets up as a 2 tight end week in terms of throwing one into your flex spot, or are you probably looking to plant your flag on one guy and go elsewhere with that last flex spot?
Yeah, I mean, usually the way I've attacked this year has just been I'm either playing Kelsey or I'm either spinning down, whether it was the RSJ play or Dan Arnold or, just anybody that's in that 3,500 range. I think it's really tough to get to the Waller Kittle area, but it's going to be super different. And large field, you got to be different because you're going to be playing against, tons of lineups that look exactly the same as their core 4 or 5 pieces. And you just got to find ways to differentiate if you're trying to take down some of these bigger tournaments.
Yeah, for sure. So unless you have any other thoughts, actually, I have one more. You mentioned the defense for the 49ers. They are the second most expensive option on the board, but defense is actually pretty reasonably priced tonight overall. They're only sitting at $3,700. So we're not into the 4K defense range quite yet. So San Francisco, definitely a viable option there. And we will mosey on down to our last stop here at the sales rack. And this is a 1:00 game. We are looking at a divisional matchup between the Houston Texans, who are traveling to Tennessee to face off against the Titans. Right now, we're sitting at a 44.5 point total. This one has moved a considerable bit. We're down 5.5 points from their open at an even 50. The Titans are sitting at a 10-point favorite. So that leaves them with the largest implied total on the board at 27.25. And yet again, the Texans are in the mid-teens, 17.25 themselves. So bit of a lopsided game, but with that large individual team total, wanted to spend some time on it here in the sales rack. Anything in here that's interesting to you, Mike?
Well, the Titans defense, but they're the most expensive option at 3,900. But that means no one's going to play them because everyone's going to need to spin down into the 2K range to fit all these guys they want to fit in. So I don't expect them to be that popular. Maybe I'm missing the boat here, and maybe there is enough money to go out and get all these receivers and guys from the Cowboys games that we want. But yeah, I'm just anytime it seems like this is the first team that's come under 4K against them in quite some time. So definitely have some interest there. I don't have any interest on the Texans side. On the Tennessee side, I mean, Tannehill's 6,700. He should score some fantasy points here. But it is Tannehill, so you never quite know what you're going to get here. AJ Brown, super expensive, 7,700. I mean, it should be the lead dog here and should be able to put up some. It's just kind of tough to play these other guys because they use so many tight ends on the Titans offense. It's like, man, McCole Pruitt and like all these guys, and my boy from UT, Marcus Johnson, is sitting there. So I don't know if I can quite get there, but you can't play Tannehill naked either. So I don't know. This game is more of just a spot where I'm just moving away from. Maybe it's because there's a lot of Texas players in this game. So I'm scarred right now.
Dude, I'm over here biting my tongue, waiting for you to say the Texas name that I'm looking for. Say it.
Deontay Foreman. Oh man.
Deontay Foreman.
Doak Walker winner, Mr. 2K at Texas.
Mr. 2K sitting at $4,900, and in a game where we have everyone's favorite, the revenge narrative. He was the next coming for the Texans not too long ago. And more specifically, I mean, Jeremy McNichols is going to be out. Adrian Peterson is not going to get any of the passing down work in this offense. And
neither is Adrian Peterson.
Trot out. I don't think they're going to trot out a 50-year-old Peterson in mop-up duty when they're up by 20 after halftime. So kind of like this Foreman play in a matchup where he should get all of the second half work.
Oh, man. I think he's from Houston. This game's in Tennessee. Okay. good, but he might still see that. I'm pretty sure he's from the Houston area, so don't mind it, man. 4,900. I mean, you got to find salary relief somewhere here.
Together
So
all of the narrative.
Man, I'm gonna have a few shares of him now. This is so annoying.
He's gonna have
might be the first Texan that I've rostered this entire year.
Tune in week 12 when Mike is just icy, just dripping from his neck from all that Dante Foreman money. Oh man, I love to poke fun at my Texans. Obviously, Mike likes to roster as many Longhorn alum as he can. So we're gonna have some exposure to this. Fire him up right along with us. If nothing else, it'll make for a good story.
Exactly. Let's get away from this game.
And we'll get far away from this game. And in the spirit of these Houston Texans, it's time to move on to the bargain bin. So you always have to stop in. Maybe you'll find a diamond-encrusted Deontay Foreman sitting down there. But ultimately, you're usually looking at things that are not all that hot, and your money is better spent elsewhere. But again, got to take a look and see if you can find that diamond in the rough. And the first game we're looking at in the bargain bin is the Miami Dolphins heading up to New York to face off against the New York Jets. We're sitting at a 44.5 implied total. The Dolphins themselves are 3.5-point road favorites. They actually picked up a half point after opening as a 3-point favorite. So that leaves them with a 24-point implied total, and with the Jets led by Joe Flacco at 20.5. So I mentioned it there. Probably the biggest storyline for these Jets is that they maybe are trying to avoid a quarterback controversy, and they are not starting Mike White. They're going to the KG veteran in Joe Flacco. On the Miami side, looks like Tua is now their starter again. After last time out, he was their backup, thrust into duty, and then held on to that role even though Brissett was healthy again. So Miami and their 15 offensive co-coordinators continue to do weird shit, but Tua is going to be starting, or at least taking the first snap. Anything in this game that you think is worth clicking on, Mike?
Man, first thing I noticed is no one in this game is priced above 5,800, so that should scare me enough away from this game. But I can't believe that. I feel like Tua and play. I can't believe that's actually a thing right now. I mean, you look at a Tua and Waddle stack, it's like you can go get everything you want from, the KC Dallas game and a couple of guys from Buffalo. Like, it's just everything you want is there. I could just see this game being so ugly. 16-9. Like, Gesicki 5,200. It's too much for me, man. Gaskin's in a good spot here. Getting submit on real money is just really tough. So I just don't know if I can get to a lot of these plays here. I may have some one-offs here. I don't mind Corey Davis and Crowder to an extent if I'm looking to, save a little bit of money. But overall, I'm just maybe taking a shot at the Tua and Waddle and maybe a couple of lineups, and that's probably going to be it for me.
Tua and Waddle are going to go out here and win someone.
You got something for me on this one? You got a millionaire?
No millionaire maker, but I think that Tua Waddle stack is probably going to win the mini max. People are trying to get out there and blow their money, which is a great time for a PSA around game selection. The lower the buy-in and the higher the total prize pool, the crazier you have to get with your lineups, like Absolutely. A Tua Waddle stack against the Jets. The other thing that I will mention, or at least call out, is it's Myles Gaskin week. We are here in week 11. In his odd numbered weeks, he has scored 17, 18, 32, 11, and 13. In his even numbered weeks, he has scored 8, 1, 3, 8, and 5.
If you guys aren't following at Fantasy Nav, man, to get these stats, man, like this is
This is next level analysis. You have to go out and get a rocket surgery degree to get this level of detail from anywhere else, and you're getting it here with us on the Pawn Shop. Odd number week, Myles Gaskin, lock button.
Oh man, I'm not there with you, brother, but I love it though.
This is not an endorsement of Myles Gaskin. Past results are not indicative of future returns. Exactly. Always invest wisely.
Oh,
man. So apart from poking fun at Myles Gaskin's
we gotta get
odd number weeks, we'll move on here in the bargain bin. And the next game that we have up is actually the source of that breaking news I mentioned before. So we are looking at the Baltimore Ravens heading to Chicago to face off against the Bears. We are sitting at a 43.5 point total. That's down an even 2 points, largely to do with the news that I made mention of a moment ago. As we sit right now, the Ravens are 5-point favorites on the road. That leaves them with an implied total of 24.25, with the Bears sitting down at 19.25 themselves. The reporting that I mentioned a moment ago is that Lamar Jackson was downgraded to questionable earlier today due to illness. It is not COVID, as they say. And as of 19 minutes ago, it looks like he is 50-50, and they are considering him a game-time decision. We all saw him leave that game against the Browns to go take a dump a few years ago. Do you think that he's just sitting there with tummy troubles, or do you think that we might actually miss out on Lamar Jackson in Week 11?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, man, and I don't even know if it matters, honestly. Even without that news, like I guess I have some interest in David Montgomery. It's a tougher matchup, but they just like giving this kid the rock. So 5,500, I don't mind it. He's really in play for me this week. So it's just an ugly price tag. He doesn't have Marquise Brown. Yeah, there's a lot of players missing in this game. I mean, you got Allen Robinson doubtful. This is another one where I'm just like, man, I'm probably just going to cross this one off the list and just move on. It just doesn't seem like there's much here. I don't know. Maybe you can talk me into something here.
I mean, I don't know if I can make a case as strong as I did for Myles Gaskin a moment ago. But the thing for me with this game, I mean, Rashad Bateman was getting a ton of love before Hollywood Brown was ruled out. Obviously, Mooney seemed to be the preferred target of Justin Fields in the Chicago offense, and now it looks like they're going to be without Allen Robinson. So I think both of these guys are going to be incredibly chalky tomorrow. Not necessarily because they're the best plays in the world, but all of the guys we want to get on tomorrow are crazy expensive, right? So you have both of these guys sitting right around the 4K range. I think it's going to be worthwhile to at least fire up one of them. And I think it's probably Mooney, right? With Lamar Jackson potentially playing, more potentially than not. And with Hollywood Brown out, I think that's going to drive a lot more people onto Bateman. And so I think Mooney is going to be the lesser owned of the two. But I mean, just flatly to get up to the Mahomes stack, to get up to the Rodgers stack, to the Allen stack, you're going to need some of these 4K receivers. And so it's really just determining which of these two is worthy of firing up.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I'm just probably I would rather take a shot at the Jets receivers than I would kind of in this game, because Miami and the Jets, they're just bad. So I think there could be some more fireworks in that game for the receivers. So that's I'm probably not going to be concentrated on this.
Yeah, and speaking of just bad, we have a 1:00 game between the Trevor Siemian-led New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles. We're sitting at a 43-point implied total. This one has come down a ton. It opened at 48. I'm not sure what the bookmakers were doing, but we're now down a full 5 points. The Eagles are sitting at 2.5-point favorites, and that is after opening at 3.5-point dogs. So basically, the guys out in the desert guessed entirely wrong when they set all of the lines for this game. The market has now shifted dramatically on the over-under and on the spread. But with that, the Eagles are sitting at a 22 3/4 implied total, and the Saints are down at 20 1/4. Anything from this game that you think is noteworthy? Obviously, we're going to be looking at another week without Alvin Kamara.
I mean, the fact that Kamara's out, I mean, I want to kind of just play the Philadelphia's defense. It's 2,900. You get Trevor Siemian in there. There's not really any game breakers that I'm concerned with on the Saints side. Taysom Hill's questionable. It's like, I feel like 2,900, it's pretty good savings. Philadelphia's okay on defense. So, that's probably where I'm going to go on this. I would love if, somehow they figure out how to do that. And I don't know if they want to do that. So it doesn't really do much for me there. Jalen Hurts, 6,800. Like, I don't care who he's playing. He's going to get those like that. Somehow he's going to be at 6 fantasy points in the third quarter. He's going to finish up with 22. And at 6,800, he's almost a cash lock. So it's like, it's just really hard to get away from him. In cash scenarios. If you look at his game logs, he's had the 20, 17, 11, 24, 26, 23, 31, 25, 21, 28. You just know what you're going to get. And there's nothing really on the other side that's too scary. So, but that's, tournaments, and I'm playing mostly tournaments. I'm not really going to get to much in this game.
Yeah. Week in and week out, Jalen Hurts is the 101 in cash game scenarios. I also play predominantly tournaments, but will throw a couple of cash darts to, kind of hedge against, all of the chalk that I faded going off. So I'll have some Hurts in that regard. But I do think it's interesting to talk about the running back situation for the New Orleans Saints. We saw Mark Ingram perform well last week, and now they've activated Tony Jones off of IR. You think that at 4K, Jones sees any work and is maybe worth a dart?
Guess. I'd rather take a dart on our boy Foreman, but yeah, I get Ingram, and looked good last game. And I think a lot of people are probably going to go there. I don't know. He's 5,400 now, so it's like, man, can you do that again? He just has such a low floor that it's kind of scary. And I just don't like this offense. There's just no game breakers with Kamara out. It just seems the Trevor Siemian, I'm probably just avoiding their side altogether.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it probably just bottoms out Ingram's upside, right? Jones is going to see some work, whether that's 6 touches or whether that's 16. It's, sort of anyone's guess in his first game back from the IR. So it's going to be really hard to press the button on Ingram, knowing that Tony Jones is now back in the mix. And with that, we will carry on to our next stop here in the bargain bin, and that is the football team of Washington heading to Carolina to square off against the Panthers. We're sitting at another 43-point total, again, one that has come down considerably. This time, 3.5 points from their 46-point open. The Panthers are sitting as 3-point home favorites. That has swung in their favor as well. They opened as a 1-point favorite. So an even 23 implied total and an even 20 points for the football team. Cam Newton is sort of the starter. He's back. I love this dude up there saying that a week ago he was naked eating some Lucky Charms on Sunday, and now he's scoring touchdowns. He
Right.
looked like he'd been housing some cereal. It's super slow to get that corner, but still huge, still super strong. So yeah, Cam Newton obviously is the storyline here. Any pieces in play with this game? You gonna go all the way down and punt at quarterback with Cam?
Yeah, I mean 5,100. I mean, he's got the rushing touchdown upside. I don't think he really has the rushing upside anymore. But the rushing the touchdown upside's there. I don't know. I don't think I can do it. I actually have more interest in Heineke on the other side. That guy just flings the rock around. I mean, he's someone that could break a slate. Other than that, man, it's like McCaffrey's 8,900. Like, and no one's gonna play him, right? So it's kind of like, can he get to that? He's played with Cam, so I don't think that drags him down any. I mean, Cam can't really throw the ball, and then we don't know what's going to happen with PJ Walker. So it's like, yeah, he's probably going to get his standard, 10 targets, and he almost rushed for 100 yards last game. He's almost back. Ugly game environment, but I don't know. Anytime, I mean, if we'd have looked a few years ago, it's like, oh man, like it's just lock and load. It doesn't matter what the game environment is. Like it's McCaffrey. But I think people are gonna be a little bit scared. One, because the price tag's pretty high. Two, the game total is so low. And three, it's like this game's just ugly in general. So yeah, I mean it's interesting. I don't know if I'm really into any of these plays. I mean DJ Moore 5,900. But with Cam and Pete down.
Yeah, he does. I really like the McCaffrey play. I'm sort of pot committed into the point where as he's going to be out there at sub 5% ownership, I'm just going to continue firing him up. Right. Had a solid week in week 10, and a lot of it was to do with Christian McCaffrey, who scored over 25 points in his second week back and had somewhere around like 6 goal line touches vultured from him. He lost 2 of them to Cam. He lost another one to Chuba Hubbard. So the upside is real. People, and arguably rightfully so, are going to feel bad about that expenditure up top. And so I'm probably going to have close to 3x his projected ownership in exposure for him this week. The other thing I want to talk about is something named John Bates is going to be the starting tight end for the football team, with not only Logan Thomas yet to return, but also Ricky Seals-Jones ruled out, sitting all the way down at $2,500. If you are doing reckless shit and spending up at like Christian McCaffrey, you think it's worth a run back with Bates and trying to save some money at that $2,500 price tag?
Oh gosh, John Bates, man, this 20. He's just gotta fall in. He's gotta fall in the end zone, right? Like he falls in the end zone at 7 points. Like 7 points right there. The catch, and maybe he gets a yard, and now he's 3x. So I guess. I mean, yeah, he's shown shown that they're not afraid to throw it to him a few times, but if you want to get cute, I guess that's a way to do it, but I would just rather end up on some of the 4K tight ends. And
the 4K tight ends are definitely the more logical choice. But I'm trying to save some money, my guy. He had 3 receptions for 25 yards last week in like half a game. He has his floor game, and he's damn near 2x.
Stop.
We've gotten to a point of being irresponsible. But if you feel like catching a wild hair, holler at your boy. We'll have some fun with it tomorrow.
I can't wait till he has like 5 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown tomorrow. It's going to be amazing.
Let's go. And week 12 of the pawn shop will be conducted from the moon with your boy.
That's right. One-way
Right.
ticket.
So we'll take our last game here in stride. Again, the lowest total on the board, 42.5 for the Detroit Lions heading to the Cleveland Browns. Browns are actually the biggest favorite on the board. They are 12.5-point favorites. That gives them an implied total of 27.5. And the Lions with the lowest implied total all the way down at 15. Somehow this Lions season has managed to get worse. They are now going to be firing up Tim Boyle, whatever that is, at quarterback. And the Browns have been a bit of a mess themselves. So before we get into any DFS analysis here, I would like to say do not play the Browns in Survivor. Everyone is going to be on it, and you're going to have a bad time. But there are a couple of pieces worth looking at, Mike. What do you like for the DFS side of this game?
Both defenses and Nick Chubb. That's
Chubb.
That's about it. Yeah, if we're not playing Browns defense, what are we doing?
What are we even doing here?
Right? Or the so maybe I'm wrong here. But Nick Chubb's in a good spot here, so yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know if I'm actually going to roster anyone that plays offense in this game, so yeah, I don't know. You got anything on this?
I mean, I have a question, which is with Jamal Williams looking very questionable for tomorrow's game. Do you think that there's any credence to firing up a DeAndre Swift who is going to get all of the touches out of the backfield, predominantly as a receiver yet again, like he did last week, where he netted nearly 20 points, saw 33 carries and 3 receptions for 135 yards. You think there's maybe a volume play there?
Is it weird that he's in this game environment? He's almost cash safe. Like, it's just kind of weird to me. I mean, he's like he's like the Jalen Hurts of running backs. Like, he's just points, and then the second to last drive of the game, he's going to get 3 catches for like 36 yards, and he'll run it in from 12 yards out, and all of a sudden you look up and he's at 17, 18, 19 points, and you just like, what just happened here? So not for me, not for tournaments. Maybe he is a tournament play because I just don't see anybody playing him, but I don't know. I mean, I'd rather just spin down. It's because I'm going to need the salary for some of the receivers I want to play.
Not if you roster John Bates. You don't need that salary.
Oh, boy. I can't wait.
So that completes our dance through all of these 12 games. Hopefully everyone that was out there listening also heard all of my qualifiers about investing wisely and not doing reckless shit. But if you do, hit me up and we'll have a good time in the DMs watching these games and likely watching some of our money disappear. But ultimately, I think the games that we all know will be the chalk are chalk for good reason. So tomorrow's slate will really boil down to where you get different and how you go about saving salary. So with that,
Absolutely.
Mike, you want to say anything to the people out there listening as we close up the pawn shop?
No, yeah. Just try to be different. If you're playing large field, you get, like we always say, you got to find creative ways to be different, whether it's using the leverage spots, or that you just got to find creative ways to get at the top of the leaderboard. Find the Mike White, so yeah, other than that, no, man, I had fun doing it again. Glad we got jumped back on it. So you can always find me in the Twitter sphere at MC Holland 34. Currently heavy into the college basketball season right now, writing up some articles, so getting that thing fired up. And then unfortunately, on the weekends, making an egg show. If you'd like to clown on Texas or you'd like to join our misery, that's where you can find us at. So,
yes, sir. And he mentioned those college hoops out there. Mike is giving away winning lineups every single day for drroto.com. So get over there, MC Holland 34 on Twitter. Hit the follow button, hit the notification button, and you will get winning player pools sent to your Twitter feed every single day out there. So doing some really good work on the college side. And obviously we love chopping it up here at the Pawn Shop. Again, my name is Eric. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyNav. And we will see you next week with those green scores.